So you had a pretty easy time at work.
Yeah.
Because no one was there.
Yeah, no one was there whatsoever. So
you just sit there and do nothing.
I watched the second half of the film.
Yeah.
And then I just Googled stuff about the film.
Nice.
I wanted to work, but I was too sad.
Good stuff.
Should I open the...
Yeah,
before
on that note. Too sad.
That was the saddest thing I've ever seen.
But we watched Hotel Rwanda just the last time.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Last time it was Hotel Rwanda.
I know! God, the Muppet seems like a long time ago.
It really does.
That was just the saddest thing I think I've ever... I watched the first half of it at work last night. And then I thought it would be fine to watch it in 2 parts, which was stupid. And then I had to go out afterwards because I was meeting a person at the pub. I just thought about it all night, and then just as soon as I got up, I watched the rest of it, and just cried about 5 times. What do other people think?
Yeah. It made me angry as well.
Yeah.
Not just sad.
Yeah.
Also angry.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty good. Yeah. People are really quite shit. In conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think last quarter, the fourth was the most intense of all the movie. I thought the first 3 quarters were okay, but then everything was very intense at the end.
Yeah. Did you all know what was going to happen?
No.
I
had no idea.
Did not know that this had ever happened.
Me neither.
Didn't have a clue that there was anything happened at the Munich Olympics.
No.
I think I had heard of something about Munich, and there was some crime happened. And then, as I started reading it, I realized it was a terrorist attack. But then that was all I knew. And there had been like terrorist attacks in Munich.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty rough. Yeah, it was really left a very, very bitter taste at the end. And yeah, you end up angry at several different people.
Yeah.
Leaves you feeling a bit helpless and, yeah, not good.
I don't know how I'm supposed to continue on with my life. Nobody knows about this.
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it just us? Why do we know about this?
Is it just that it happened so long ago and it's old news now?
It probably is, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite something. Yeah, so I was sad, firstly, that people would want to commit a crime like that. And then also sad that just through bad planning and communication, handling the crisis went so badly wrong. And then sad that, this revelation at the end that maybe the West German government just let the people go without charging them. It's dreadful.
Yeah, pretty staggering indifference and incompetence.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, the level of incompetence was just
shocking.
One of my comments, I've just reread them because it was a little while since I saw the film, was what a fucking shambles. Like filming
my god,
covert attack and stuff like that.
I was thinking about that, as in, will they not know? I mean,
it's like,
there
how
are
hard
reporters
is it?
everywhere.
Live TV.
Yeah.
Even not keeping the roads clear on the airport so that they can't get the fucking armoured cars through. Forgetting to order the armoured cars. I'm so angry about it.
The police officers say that they're unqualified and leaving the airplane at the end.
Just abandoning their mission.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm sure they'd only had an hour or so to do all the preparations, but just to say a couple of minutes before, do you know what, that's just not terrible. I think the thing that got me so much was the snipers didn't have radio communication.
Yeah.
They said, "You guys go up there. We'll see you when it's all over." It's not like they didn't. There's a few things that we saw here that was like it was the 70s that we'd have done this differently. Now we have better technology, but that wasn't one of them. Like they had radios. One little walkie-talkie for each of them could have saved the whole mission. I'm amazed that it just didn't.
But then they weren't snipers. They didn't have sniper rifles.
Oh yeah, they think they just had.
They were just
assault
like
rifles,
police
right?
officers. Yeah, with normal assault rifles who were just picked because they happened to shoot recreationally. I read it.
Right.
Oh my god. Yeah, but there's so many bits like that where it's like, well, if they'd just done that, then none of this would have been a problem.
Yeah.
Like, so many parts. Like, just walkie-talkies. Totally would have managed it.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, pretty bad. No, I really thought some miracle was going to happen and they were all going to get out of it, or at least some people would survive. But no.
Yeah, and the reporting that they survived and then
How did that happen? Oh my god.
turned out they had.
Yeah.
I guess just a huge media circus where, I mean, if anything, they were definitely letting the press have too much information about what was going on in terms of letting them point cameras at things and stuff. So I wonder if just the lack of information, rumours get started but yeah, to have got that so badly wrong. Did
you know what?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say, do you know what else made me so... The other, apart from just the mass incompetence, was that they were just so keen to have the games continue. What the fuck?
Now, I
And
wanted...
the athletes even, like, just chilling while this is all going on.
Play some ping pong.
Sunbathing in sight of the apartment where it was all happening. It's incredible. Ghoulish. I did have a bit of a question, which is, it occurred to me there is a case for just continuing the games, because the whole reason they had done this was to try and get the eye of the world on them. And in the same way that there's a case to be made for not negotiating with terrorists at all and that kind of thing, I think there's a case to be made for saying, well, you're not stopping, this is a big thing with people from all over the world, and we're celebrating like friendship and sport between countries, and you can't stop that. We're going to do what we can to resolve the crisis, but we don't need to give you more power than we have to. That didn't seem to be what they were saying.
No.
It seemed, well, from the film.
They gave them the platform. They gave them media coverage.
Yeah.
If that had been the motivation, they wouldn't have been broadcasting it.
I got the feeling that the German people in charge were more like, well, this just isn't what we want them to think about Germany, you know?
Yeah.
So let's not care about the Jews.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, and it seemed like they were just trying to get on with it and try not to, like, lose the money that comes with and the good exposure that comes with the games being on.
I think I read also, I don't know if it's true because this is just obviously like not from a reliable source probably, but that they had like someone predict different terrorist scenarios. Did you read that?
No.
Anyone? They correctly predicted that armed Palestinians would like take the Israeli team hostage and then demand a plane out of there, but they decided not to like plan for that. They'd asked some kind of like psychoanalytic specialist to predict different scenarios.
Yeah.
And also that they'd received a tip off, but again, this seems very sensational, so I don't know how true it is, but like a tip that some incident was going to happen, but because they didn't want it to seem like a militarised kind of... They wanted that openness of like no security and things, so they just decided to ignore it.
Okay. Yeah, we saw people climbing fences and stuff, didn't we?
I'm going to look at this.
And I must say, like, watching, say, the London Olympics, it was distasteful how high security was at times. How they were like going through everyone's bag who was going anywhere near the stadium and stopping people from bringing in all sorts of innocuous objects and stuff. And it made the organisers look sort of distrustful. It made the whole thing seem a bit dirtier and a bit more horrible. But I've revised my view on that since watching this film.
I think also maybe the United Kingdom at that time was very cautious about terrorism. I remember here that in ceremonies they also checked your bags.
I can believe that.
Because several terrorist attacks had been happening in Europe at that time, I think.
Yeah. And indeed, the worst terrorist attack that ever happened in London was in 2005. They call it the 7/7 bombings. And those were the day after the UK was awarded the Olympics. So the day after the announcement that in 2012 there'll be the London Olympics, there was, the worst attack that had happened. And what was it, 70 people died or something?
Yeah, that does sound like a bit of a threat, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it didn't come
as
off
well
in
as
the
an
end.
awful thing to happen.
Yeah.
I also read... Oh, sorry.
No, go.
They refused to, at the London Olympics, hold a minute's silence for the Munich ones. It
Really?
was like, some people were trying to campaign for a minute's silence, and I don't know enough
Sure.
detail, but they were
Yeah,
like,
that's
no, it's like too political.
Wow, yeah. Is that
40 years
done?
later. And
Yeah. I suppose if that's done every year, like every Olympics, but to try and introduce it maybe as a bit of a statement, a bit of a political statement.
It's an odd one, 'cause there's a lot of things that we should have minutes silences for, and you'd have like 10 different minutes of silence at the start of every event if you were to...
have 24 hours of silence.
Yeah. There's
It's not
something
at
to be
the
said for
Olympics,
not having...
though, for a terrorist attack that happened at the Olympics, which
doesn't-
then received a massive cover-up, and
Yeah,
yeah.
there's something to be said for it. But then I wonder if there were other things that it would be better to use the minute's silence for, or... don't know. Yeah, I'm still amazed that I'd never heard of this.
Yeah, I think it's shameful that
Yeah.
it's not just part of our consciousness.
Yeah. But I wonder how many other things... Because that really was a long time ago now. It was 45 years or something. 47 years. So, yeah, there are many people whose parents weren't born when this happened. It makes sense that it will be remembered less.
I vaguely remember... Do you remember the news story about Jeremy Corbyn supposedly laying a wreath at the graves of the Black September terrorists?
Yes, this rings a bell.
Yeah.
And there was no evidence that he did, but he
No,
was
it was a
definitely
total-
there, wasn't he?
He was there, he said, but he was just there to commemorate... Like, it's a cemetery for all Palestinian martyrs.
Yeah,
He was
okay.
attending. So, but yeah, it was totally, I think, fabricated.
Yeah. But that
Yeah,
was
it was
this
just
group,
something
was
that...
it?
Yeah, it was that group, so it just rang a bell of like,
Okay.
I
Okay.
have heard of, like, that vaguely related thing in the news.
Yeah. It was weird seeing what terrorists were like in the 70s, to me. I don't know if this is something that went through your heads, that we see terrorist threats now, and that it's a very different beast nowadays. There were a lot of things that surprised me watching this. So this film came out in 2004? No, in 2000, I think. Yeah, it was 2000, which was the year before 9/11. And therefore sort of the year before, like, Islamist terrorism really got going as a big thing that people were aware of. And I was amazed seeing they went in and they sent a person out who just sort of chatted with the authorities, and even the people in the authorities said, actually, yeah, he seemed really nice. He seemed like just a guy that you could chat with, and they had these precise things that they wanted, and they said, we'll let all these people go if you do these things. That's your option. And when they said, we need more time, they said, okay, we'll give you more time. They were negotiating, whereas when you see terrorist attacks now, it's usually like a suicide bomber who doesn't... There's no room for negotiation because it's all over and the person themselves is dead before it's even started. It was just...
Yeah, I do think, like, the press conferences stuff, like, with the terrorists, just seems so bizarre. Like, the idea that you would do that now.
In Libya later.
Yeah, just, like, say, so you still glad you did it? Or, you know, do you regret it at all?
Members of the British media there interviewing them. Incredible. Like, well-shaved, smiling, chatting, just completely members of society. Compared to now, where, again, most of the people doing this stuff are...
bearded.
Bearded, for one thing.
That is the main difference.
But also hiding in their bedrooms or hiding outside major settlements. Occasionally leaving, like, videos that they've shot. With messages that usually involve their demands being like the destruction of Western civilization. It just surprised me watching that, and for the first half of the film I was thinking, this is pretty intense, but isn't this a lot better than terrorism nowadays? And that feeling definitely was not there by the end.
So you had the feeling that everything had become more radicalised?
Yeah, absolutely. Not that I didn't think Hamas were radical in doing this, and not that I thought it was okay what they were doing, but
just a bit more personal, you know?
just seemed more human somehow, more like a logical action to try and achieve a genuine end.
Rather than just the big brother, we need to be at war with someone. And there's just this big mythical enemy.
Yeah, exactly. Both from our side and from theirs. It was Did you guys have that thoughts going through it, that this is so different from terrorism now? Maybe didn't
not really. It didn't occur to me at all.
There was something. It felt more chilling because, like, just this human interaction, just and the scene that got me was like when the coffins were going back to Libya, and everyone was wanted to touch the martyrs' coffins and things like that. Like, just that human engagement with death, I suppose. Like, knowing that death is what is the intended outcome of this. And it's very different if it's, you know, a building full of people. You can somehow... Like, you can't comprehend that. So you don't try to understand what it was like for one person. Whereas this was just like individual people, individual coffins that people were trying to get close to. And that's almost an emotion that you can wrap your head around. You can understand loss of one person, or admiring one person for something they've done. And that it meant I really had to engage with the emotion of it, and it just, it was, maybe chilling's not the word, but it felt a lot more real than this. Okay. The kind of abstract, what we talk about as terrorism now. So I don't know if it's the same thing, but that was probably the nearest thing that I thought about.
Sure. And part of that was tied up for me with, the first half of the film being like an exciting adventure. I thought, isn't it amazing that something so... Because I was thinking, surely this will have some kind of, not totally soul-crushing ending. This is like the true story of something exciting, like watching a Second World War movie or something.
Yeah.
Had you seen anything about what it was before you started watching the film, or did you just put it on? And...
I don't think I saw anything. Yeah, I think I knew it was something to do with terrorists at the Munich Olympics, but I didn't know anything else.
Yeah, I think I'd maybe seen the Netflix description of it, or
Was it on
one
IMDb
sentence.
or something?
Nah, I don't think it was. Just the one sentence description.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And the moment I realised that it was going to have at least sort of bad ending was when what's her name? It was one of their wives that they were interviewing throughout.
The fencing coach's wife.
Yeah, the fencing coach's wife. And she said, and that was the last time I ever saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
was
like,
quite...
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
You mean they don't all just get out? Because...
Yeah, I thought he might be the one that died or something.
Yeah.
But no, it's just all of them. Cool ringtone.
Anyone we know?
I don't know this person.
Just a spam caller or something.
I think so. Yeah. Sorry, I shall silence myself. Yeah.
No problem. What made you choose this film?
Well, again, a list of. I think this won the best documentary in at the Oscars in 2000 and something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, we haven't seen a documentary. Well, I mean, we've somehow seen documentaries. Well, if this one is one that won... I mean, I did not specifically choose this one. It's just that it was like a documentary, an Oscar award-winning documentary. Maybe it is good. And yeah, that was the reason.
I see.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. Did you know anything about the events before?
No. Again, no. I think I was just like you. That I didn't. First of all, did not know of anything that had happened in Munich at that time. Then realized of the existence of this documentary, and it was like, oh well, there had been terrorist attacks in Munich, and that's the only thing that I knew.
Yeah.
Which made it all more chilling in the end. I was like, oh, whoa, how intense. Yes. There were several things that made me really sad. I think the scene that you mentioned where they were received as heroes. I was like, oh. I mean, why?
That was the first bit that made me really despair and really get a bit angry because it suddenly felt like whole nations of people wanted this to happen, or tens of thousands of people.
It was also surprising to me because I think so far, I mean, and it made me realize that maybe I should learn more about more things in life. But I've been aware of perhaps a tiny bit of the conflict between, I believe, Israel and Palestine. And perhaps ignorantly, I have always been on the side of Palestine. But then seeing that even, as in all sides, of course, as in realizing once again that all sides can have like a very dark side, made me really sad.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I had some awareness that terrorist groups had done some pretty bad stuff in the Arab-Israeli conflict, but I think, like you, I seem to have been exposed to more news about various atrocities that the State of Israel has committed. And so it was notable seeing just how very much like the bad guys in this film were were Palestinians, and watching it made you think, wow, it's pretty rough on both sides, which is troubling. But another thing that it made me think is it wasn't really anything to do with religion in this film. It was, all of their demands were about their nation and their people, their ethnicity, against this other nation that they saw as having done various bad things. And now it seems to be so caught up with Jews and Muslims, and the idea, people tend to see this as like a religious conflict, which I don't think it really is. And the more we look at it like a religious conflict, the more it seems like there's no way to ever solve it, and no one will ever agree, and just these people will hate each other forever. But the way it was all presented in this film, and the way even the terrorists and the Israelis during these events were acting, made it feel like a conflict between a 2 or 3 nations, and that feels like a lot more like something that you can find some resolution to. And so it made me sort of worry that even since this terrible thing has happened, we've got worse and worse at trying to resolve this. Just a thought. Is that fair to say that they didn't really talk about religion the whole film?
Pretty much. It was my understanding though that it wasn't a particularly skewed towards religion then.
Yeah, and maybe that's become more a part of it since. Yeah,
I don't know much about it, to be honest now, but I thought it was more about like occupation of territory, like obviously divided along these lines that included religion, but yeah, and I think it is. But a shame that we can sometimes get distracted by the fact that one side is overwhelmingly Jewish and one is overwhelmingly Muslim, and all the Arab countries that are on the Palestinian side are all overwhelmingly Muslim, except maybe Lebanon, and Didn't they say that the leader was half Jewish of the Palestinian terrorist group?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get that.
I must have missed it.
Yeah,
maybe
so that's even more.
Yeah, not just down these lines.
Yeah. So I every time I think I've got a handle on maybe what things are about, I get really confused. But so Israel didn't exist as a state. Is that right?
I think so.
After the war.
Yeah. 48 or something.
So you can kind of see why people would be pissed off, like if you've just got your country and then the UN says, this bit's a different country now.
However, that region did exist, and I think it was called Israel. So even though it wasn't a country, I believe that, as in the region at least, had been identified as Israel because of religious texts.
Okay.
But I thought it was called Palestine, but people thought of it as Israel. So when there was that mass movement they called it Israel. But before that, it was just Palestine.
Yes. I know that the country Israel did not exist, but I believe that the word itself, Israel, did exist before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was viewed as a nation of people that had no homeland, wasn't it? I think that's the idea.
Yes, I believe, maybe.
But so regardless of names, very much Jewish people saw that as the Holy Land, to which they would someday hope to return.
Also, what I thought was somehow sad, as in, yes, there were many mistakes maybe that the German police or the German security forces made, and yes, I was willing to say, okay, well, this was in the past, and maybe they weren't properly trained, and that was a mistake, but I suppose that was easier for me to forgive than when they said, no, we just released them.
Yeah. Incredible. And I was expecting to... I did just briefly look up the film. I did what I do, what I've done for a couple of films we've watched, just go on the Wikipedia page of the film and scroll down to controversy, because if there was anything in that film that's hotly disputed, then it will normally turn up in there. And yeah, it seems like this conspiracy theory that maybe the West German government wanted to get rid of these terrorists and set up this whole hostage situation and flight hijacking with Hamas. It seems like that really could be true. And we even saw the guy in the film, didn't we? Who was one of the West German government or one of the authorities. They asked him about it, and he just shrugged, as if to say, could be. We just don't know. And that's a long way from being able to say, well, no, that probably isn't true. That's just so spineless and so negative for. Just encourages groups like that to do things like that again because they think they can get away with it. Sorry, just to come back to the setting up of the State of Israel, probably worth mentioning that it was a region called Palestine, but it was governed by the British.
Fucking British, right?
Up until the end of the Second World War. At which point I think it was a good idea so it wasn't exactly like power had been taken away from the Arabs that lived there in favour of setting up a Jewish state. It was like, okay, guys, no more colonialism. What are we going to do now?
Because they're too poor, apparently, wasn't it? It wasn't like, we don't want the empire anymore. It was like, we're in this post-war depression and we can't afford to keep anything going. And the US is like not loaning us any money while we're letting Jews into Palestine and things like that. Yeah. That was an interesting thing I never knew either, that they were... I didn't know this before I watched them, but that they were in charge of the emigration from Europe to Palestine of Jews, and they just... the white papers or something, the Britain.
Right.
So they capped the numbers that could go in, and then they actually... people who had survived the Holocaust were interned in camps in Cyrus by the British to stop them getting into Palestine.
Yeah, okay.
It's just so upsetting.
You do.
This is what all these pro-Brexit people want to bring back. They want Britain to be in charge of the world.
The empire.
Doing shit like that. Oh.
Luckily, though, we'll be so poor after Brexit that we won't be able to...
That's good, isn't it?
That's something. Oh, well, we're something like a footnote in geopolitics now, aren't we?
Thank Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
We just did not do well with power.
And sadly, we didn't do all that well giving up power in many cases. We didn't do so badly in some places, but yeah, stuff like this, setting up just this mess of a pair of states that are kind of states but kind of not. And the partition of India. Just what a dreadful last thing to do in charge of a country, just to screw it up so badly.
Could pretty much be summarised in okay, bye.
Yeah, or more like, oh, by the way, he hates you and he's been cheating on you behind your back. We're taking all this stuff by. Yeah, it's a complete mess. Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
That said, I can see at least some case for setting up a state for Jewish people to call their own. And if you're doing that, it's very difficult to answer the question of what about the other people who live there already. And it's very difficult to answer questions like, what do you do with what happens to the 10 million people from around the world who want to suddenly move somewhere that doesn't have a load of natural resources and can't necessarily immediately cope with a huge influx of population? And I think all of those are difficult questions which the British government completely failed to answer. in league with the French and the US and the UN. So I at least think it was difficult.
Yeah. And you can kind of understand how people become so radicalised when there's just been mass displacement from your home. You're in this refugee camp and you're growing up this nothing that just could turn to hatred of something so much that you could commit such atrocities. Yeah,
you can see where they're coming from somehow.
Not like empathise with them, but like you can kind of objectively understand how this sort of seed of radicalisation could be planted.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain impulse to tear down things that seem wrong that I think I've shared at times and thought this whole thing's a disaster. We must do something surely, and it's difficult to accept that. It's difficult to accept that the answer sometimes is you need to sit down quietly and slowly negotiate over 20 years. That's not attractive. And in this film, we have to face the conclusion that terrorism was a successful method of achieving what the people wanted to achieve. In many ways, like we've just talked about, how a lot of what we see in the media now is very anti-Israeli government, and at least their case in this film was that the Israeli government had been doing a load of awful stuff, and these kinds of things brought it to the world's attention, and that's particularly uncomfortable to think about. That they may even have been successful in what they were trying to do by killing a load of innocent people.
I've got another question related to, like, in the film, when they were talking about the terrorists and the terrorist groups, they were calling them the Arabs. Was that just a racist broad brushstroke, or was that the Arabs and the Jews are the ones that fight out in that area?
I noticed that it was just the Israelis that were interviewed, or some of the Israelis that were interviewed, that called them the Arabs, right?
I think at one point a reporter said the Arabs, or like a newscaster or something, and that's when I thought, that's a bit unusual. I did not expect that.
All the Wikipedia pages that I read, the many Wikipedia pages, brushing up on this.
It's not a bad read, Ross.
It's very handy.
I'm all for learning from Wikipedia.
Talked about Arabs and Jews. So
really?
It's like quite a common
Okay.
way of dividing it. But again, it might be racist, I'm not sure, I don't know.
I think that's how people describe themselves, Arab and Jew. But it seemed to me that it was mostly the Arabs and Jews in question that were talking about Arabs and Jews, and it was mostly the Europeans and Americans in the film that were talking about Israelis and Palestinians. But I don't quite know what that comes from.
It just seems unhelpful to just say the Arabs, because the Arab state is huge and doesn't all necessarily want to fuck up Israel.
Yeah.
Or maybe it does, I don't know. But this was a very specific... These were Palestinian refugees who had been displaced.
Yeah.
Wanted to have that heard, to then just be like, the Arabs are doing a bad thing.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit unhelpful.
Yeah, you're suddenly dragging in, 20 other countries?
Yeah.
And when you say Jews, dragging in people living in 100 countries. Not good.
But apparently this is... Because anyone can update Wikipedia, right?
Yeah.
So
it must be true.
So it must be right. Like, I'd have been updated by now if that was not the politically preferred term.
Yeah.
Unless Labour Party have been at it or something.
God. Suspend her! You'll get your letter in the post tomorrow.
Did we all enjoy that the Israeli Olympic team went to see Fiddler on the Roof the night before?
I did enjoy that.
That was a nice touch.
Good choice. Good choice.
I thought, that's what I'd have done. In fact, I thought about that for a little while, and I thought, why did they tell us that? And I thought, I did want to know that. That's kind of interesting. That's cool somehow. But what can we learn from the fact that they went to see Fiddler on the Roof? And
Do you think it's symbolic?
You can ring a bell. Could be.
Oh, right, great.
I think if nothing else,
Symbolism.
there's something to be said that it's a symbol of how much Germany had changed compared to the previous Olympics, where what they were 1934,
6, I know.
6, which is sort of well into bad persecution of Jews. That they would have
anyone really, wasn't it? There was a lot of persecution of a lot of people.
Particularly Jews, though, right? And to go from there to having a big professional production in a major capital, in a major city, celebrating Jewish culture and life. That's noticeable. Also, love Fiddler on the Roof. Did you notice the bit where they said they were going to go and see Muppets Take Manhattan?
Shut up.
Yeah, that's fair. What did you all think of, right near the end, the high-paced, energetic rock music with interspersed pictures of sporting triumphs and dead people?
I had not really necessary. I described it as the action montage.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't think I mind it, because I thought it's quite a jarring... I think it's meant to be really jarring, which it was. The part that I didn't like with the music was when they were showing the bodies in the helicopter.
Oh
and
my God,
they had a really weird song on that I just thought that's crossed the line for me with tasteless.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to jar me here with it's too much this point, but it's so subjective, because I thought they did use the music quite well through the other parts at the beginning as well, especially. But yeah. So.
Do you have thoughts on that, Fernando?
No, I thought it was interesting. I did not feel like it was inappropriate, but maybe it was.
Did you feel any parts of the film were insensitive? Or too insensitive?
Or too insensitive? No.
Okay. That's good. Yes, to some extent it's trying to shock us, isn't it? So, but yeah, I was uncomfortable, as you were, with the way they showed us some of the photos. But yeah, maybe that was fair.
I suppose they're trying to just scrap convention where we'll be sad for a bit about it.
And in a way that was good, just like Hotel Rwanda not tugging on the heartstrings too much. You can show people a story and get them to process the facts themselves, and you don't have to tell them how sad it is that this happened.
Yeah. I think that was what worked maybe for me about the montage with it, when they were just showing the sporting triumphs against that stuff, which is that you're showing the sides that just don't care about, there's just mundane stuff. We're all going to forget about this eventually when we stop watching it. I don't really know what the point is I'm trying to make, but it's sort of highlighting that we'll just dissociate and forget about it.
Which is just what we did.
Yeah, I don't know what maybe I can phrase it better, but come back.
Okay. One of my notes is about whether it was in black and white or colour, because I think it's switched between the two. And I don't know if that was just because some of the footage was only in black and white.
That's what I understood.
But yeah, I don't have any more details, so I don't know quite what I was thinking at that point. But now that I think about it, it probably was just that a lot of the action, the sporting footage, would just be in black and white.
Yeah. I think my dad told me that his family got a colour TV for the 1972 Olympics. I think that's what he said. And there was a bit of a push to say, like, this is going to be a big event. You want to get a colour TV because it'll all be broadcast in colour, or a lot of it will be. And he didn't like it because it was blurrier than black and white when it first came out. Don't know if that tells us anything. I thought the contemporary news presenters were surprisingly insensitive. The way they were, showing it as a live 24-hour news coverage thing, and all just standing there staring at this building, impeding the police, and all that kind of thing. Firstly, I'm surprised that the authorities let them, and then I'm surprised at the way they went about it, being kind of snazzy with the way they would phrase things. Remember, in the worst part of the whole film, when we just discover that they all died, they tell us that with the newsreader saying something
My
like,
father said our greatest hopes and greatest fears are never realised. Well,
ladies and gentlemen, this is one time, which seemed like
apparently that wasn't scripted. Like, they were literally feeding him the news, and he was just saying things
I can believe
as
that.
he just like he hadn't been told. We see the moment where he gets told that they're all dead, when going from believing that they were all alive. So I can forgive him for saying something that's really cheesy and inappropriate.
Just because it's difficult to,
I suppose, like,
to say
he's
the right
probably
thing.
not processing it at that time. Like, he's just getting this horrific news on live television.
But just to editorialise it like that was surprising. But maybe 10 seconds later he thought, oh, maybe I should have just said it straight or something, and it's too late. But that was not the only time throughout the film that they would say, they wouldn't say, we've just discovered that as I think, say, the BBC would do now, this is breaking news, the Israeli team at the Olympics has been held hostage. They were saying a happy time turned sad, a dramatic occasion as this happens. They were as if they were trying to sell newspapers right then and there, as if they were trying to entertain people, and that's what felt bad about it. I certainly don't blame the film for that, because they were showing what was said at the time.
Was it somehow related? I'm not sure if it's related, but to my mind it is, to that insensitiveness, is when they showed us the graves of the athletes. To me, it just sounds like the Olympic Committee had betrayed the Israeli team, and if those athletes were still alive, maybe they would not want to remember their participation in those Olympics. But still, the Olympic rings were on top of their graves. Yeah. And I was like, oh, how unfortunate. Maybe they should remove them?
Yeah, being defined by...
Was that their actual graves, or was that the memorial?
Oh, I'm not sure, but still, I thought maybe they shouldn't be there.
Because if it's a memorial dedicated straight for them, then you can understand why it would have that, and why it would have their murder.
I believe it was probably their graves. It was the daughter, I believe, visiting her father's grave.
That's how I understood it as well. But I thought the same thing, that what if they didn't all want to be buried in that particular way, or what if their families didn't want it?
I thought it was just a memorial, but I may be wrong.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I've thought it before at other times, though, like war graves, where all the gravestones are exactly the same. And I've wondered sometimes, did the family get a say in this, or did the people who died get a say in it? What's going on here? That said, we saw how much the how much at least some of the athletes were proud of the Olympics and happy to be there. The way they went over and talked to the Lebanese.
But I wonder if they were happy with the way in which their situation was handled.
No, perhaps not.
Maybe their opinion changed.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So this is maybe a bit too much information, but when my mum died, I had to like really argue quite hard with pretty much everyone in my family about having like pink everywhere for breast cancer. And it's like, but that mum's not defined by the thing that killed her. And I feel like defining people by these Olympic Games where they were badly like not mistreated but underprotected or whatever, it's kind of cruel. But people see that, they think, oh yeah, that'll be nice, won't it, if we have them all together, somehow that's more collegiate or something. So yeah, the idea of like having the Olympic rings on it is just cruel, I think. In a way.
Unless you're right,
Unless it's a memorial.
their grave.
Yeah. I think it's a bit different with military. I imagine when you like join the army, you're sort of giving your life to the army, aren't you?
Yeah, sure.
Provisionally. And therefore they probably get a say in where you're buried.
And particularly Second World War memorials and stuff, they just wouldn't have been able to deal with people as they would have wanted. I didn't have any other thoughts.
No.
Oh, I might have other thoughts.
Yeah,
I don't
see what
think
else
so.
you got.
No, they're mostly just Fury related.
I thought it was a really good choice for a film.
Yeah.
And it was good to watch a documentary. It wouldn't have occurred to me to pick a documentary.
Yeah, no, I hated every minute of watching it, but I'm glad you chose it.
And I didn't, as I say, I loved the first half or 2/3 because it was exciting and I didn't realise what was going to happen. So I did enjoy it, and I would watch it again eventually.
Yeah, I never want to see it again.
No.
Any films that deal with that subject matter.
Yeah.
Right.
20 years.
Yeah, sure. It was interesting, and I think I learned a lot.
Yes, that's what I like about documentaries, that maybe you don't learn everything, but at least you become aware of more things.
Yeah.
I wonder if I should have studied history.
Maybe you should. Sort of a secret history.
My high school maths teacher, when he went to university, he was deciding between maths and history, and he chose maths because you don't have to read as many books.
Yeah, that's true. I'm glad that I did not study. I'm glad that I did not study history, but I'm glad that I can watch documentaries.
It's easier to dabble in history. It's a bit harder to dabble in maths.
Perhaps.
It's loading. You never load.
Vegan bacon?
Baking.
Oh, baking.
Sorry, Scottish accent.
No, it's just that
I do say those words the exact same, so.
Yeah. You said them the same.
Bacon? Bacon.
Right,
Oh,
so
that's different.
Bacon? Bacon.
Excellent.
okay.
Who's gonna be?
dun, 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 dun.
Claire!
Yeah!
Schindler's List.
I'm always first out of that.
Yes!
Hey, you've got a good record, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm so good at this. So the film I have chosen this week is on Netflix. It's called
Excellent.
The Last Action Hero.
Last action
Cool.
hero. Just write it down right
Okay.
now.
The Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
How depressing.